Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal this Thursday. I hope the day is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. The weekend is fast approaching, and what a weekend it is. Arsenal versus Liverpool, not too far away now. Huge game, always a massive game, of course, but this one feels pretty big for Arsenal, even at this early stage of the season. Already 4 points behind Liverpool. Of course, defeat would make that 7, and then Arsenal's next 2 away games in the Premier League are Newcastle and Chelsea, which is going to be a struggle, of course. So it feels like a big, big game for Arsenal, especially as they're going into it with a few question marks over their form. The defeat of Bournemouth, the fairly underwhelming second half against Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League. Feels like there's a lot of people looking at Arsenal right now, seeing what sort of response they are going to give against Liverpool. Mikel Arteta in that press conference after the Shakhtar game said, "Don't you worry, we will be flying on Sunday," which will be interesting to see if they are or not. So we'll talk about that game in today's show. Got lots of questions and comments from you guys that we're going to go through. We're going to do the latest team news, talk a little bit about Jack Wilshere's exit and the appointment of Adam Birchall as the new under-18s coach following Wilshere's move to, I was going to say West Ham for some reason, Norwich, of course. Right, we'll start with Bukayo Saka. Now, obviously Mikel wasn't overly optimistic or didn't sound overly optimistic about Bukayo Saka's chances of facing Liverpool this weekend when he spoke about it after the game on Tuesday night. But there is a chance that Bukayo is going to be fit. From what I understand, he hasn't definitely been ruled out of this game, and Arsenal are going to give him as much time as possible to be fit. There is a hope that he might well be able to make the game, as far as I'm aware. So, whether he does or not, we're going to have to wait and see. And I'm sure tomorrow when Mikel sits down for his press conference at London Colney at 1:30, he is not going to give too much away, and he's going to leave it fairly open in terms of the chances of him playing. But I don't think, I was pretty down hearing Mikel's comments about Bukayo after the game, but I think there's more of a chance maybe than he is letting on. Like I said, that Arsenal are going to have to leave it late. There will be a training session on Saturday at London Colney. I think after that session, a decision will be made on Bukayo's fitness. The same goes for Jurrien Timber, who I think does still have a chance. He hasn't been ruled out yet for this game. Obviously, there's probably going to be a little bit of risk involved on both of those players if there is sort of indication that they can play. They haven't played for a while. So you're going to have to balance just how important they are and would be to the team, balance that with just the amount of risk of potentially throwing him in if it's not 100%. And the thing with Bukayo, obviously, it's a hamstring. And I'm not sure what Timbers is. It's a muscular injury, but I don't know which muscle is injured. But certainly with Saka, with the explosive nature of how he plays, if you've got a dodgy hamstring or you've got a hamstring that is not 100% right, it is definitely a risk to play. But this is a big, big game, and you want your big players. And I think we've seen when you've got no Odegaard in the team, if you have no Saka in the team as well, I mean, that just exacerbates the problem, which is obvious because they're two absolute top quality players, two of the best players in their positions in the world. So you take them out of the team at the same time, then any team is going to struggle without them. So that's why there's going to have to be a fairly, I imagine, a fairly deep conversation with the medical staff and everyone before deciding whether Saka is ready to play. But yeah, I wouldn't be ruling it out just yet, put it that way, which would be, I mean, having him on the team would be a massive boost. There's no doubt about it. Arsenal miss Bukayo Saka, just the sheer quality and precision of the way he plays and the chances that he creates and the danger that he causes the opposition. You just want him in the team for these big games. He is a man for a big occasion. He's proved it time and time again, and Arsenal will give him every single chance that they can get for him to be fit to play this game. Moving on to Martin Odegaard now. Obviously, Martin is, highly doubtful. I mean, he's not going to play against Liverpool, no doubt about it. But we'll have to wait and see in terms of how close he is to returning. But Mikel's hopeful that he's going to train or play before the next international break. Now, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but Solbakken, the Norway coach, of course, has been speaking to Norwegian media, and he has suggested that he is planning to call Martin Odegaard up for the next international break. He said, everything indicates that things are going according to plan. So it's about the last steps when you have to train with opponents and in team training. It depends on how he responds to that, but we have a legitimate hope that he is going to be ready. So that's the comments of Solbakken to the Norwegian media about Martin Odegaard, which I've already seen has caused quite a stir, certainly amongst Arsenal fans, which is understandable because Arsenal fans are desperate to see Martin Odegaard back. Everyone wants to see him back in the team. And the thought of him then immediately going away on international duty, where he got injured, of course, in the first place, is not really one that appeals to many people. They'd be like, no, let's just keep him. Let's protect him. If he comes back, plays a couple of games, then let's just keep him at London Colney and make sure he's absolutely ready to go after international break. There is the argument, though, which is an understandable argument, that if a player hasn't played much football and they're trying to work their way back to full match sharpness, that maybe it's a good thing to let him go away to international duty. If, say, he comes back and he plays a couple of substitute appearances before the international break, then maybe it's a good thing for him to go away to Norway, play a couple of games and get some minutes under his belt. So when he comes back from that international break, then he is sharper than he would have been if he'd have just stayed around London Colney, had a few days off and then done some training. I mean, look, it's all hypothetical anyway. It remains to be seen exactly how quickly Odegaard comes back. As Solbakken said there, the key thing now is obviously he's getting closer and closer, but this is the big next step when he does get back out on the pitch, when he does get back to training, to put in all that force onto the ankle in training. Imagine doing the rondos, for example, and the quick turns and all the pressure that goes through the ankle and all that sort of stuff when you're in training, when you're getting kicked by your teammates in training. That's the big next step. Can he handle that step? You would hope the answer is yes. That's what he's going to have to go through before he's 100% fit. So this is a major step for Martin Odegaard. Obviously, Liverpool's going to come too soon for him. That's a shame. But hopefully we'll get him back sooner rather than later. In terms of Ricardo Calafiori, Arsenal obviously waiting and assessing the results of the scans. The scan was planned, I think, for yesterday. I imagine that has now taken place, unless the swelling was so big that they decided to wait another day before doing the scan. Obviously, he's a huge, huge doubt for the game against Liverpool. I can't imagine there's any way he's going to play this weekend. And that's based on no information. That's just based on seeing the injury, is how it happened. It looked like a very bad one. If he's back this weekend, I think it's going to be a bit of a miracle. But yeah, in terms of the full extent of the injury, I'm not aware of any news filtering through yet in terms of how bad it will be. I think everyone's still sitting there with their fingers crossed, hoping it's not going to be as serious as maybe it could have been when you saw that replay for the first time, when it was just impossible not to wince when you look at the direction that his leg went in and his knee went in compared to the rest of his body. So Arsenal's still waiting on the results of that. So team news-wise, in terms of the game against Liverpool, obviously no Odegaard yet, no Tomiyasu yet. Saka, a doubt, but Arsenal hoping he could feature. No Calafiori. Timber, similar to Saka, a doubt, yes, but not being ruled out yet. And there is a possibility he could return for this game, which, like Saka, would be a huge, huge boost to Arsenal, especially with no William Saliba, of course, who we know is suspended because of that red card he picked up in the game against Bournemouth. Liverpool won yesterday in the Champions League. I think they've won their first 6 away games of this season, the first time in the club's history that they've done that. Remarkable start that Arne Slot's enjoyed so far at that Liverpool team. So yeah, they're heading to the Emirates this weekend on the back of 6 successive away games in all competitions to start the new season. That's what Arsenal are going to have to put a stop to this weekend. It's going to be tough, no doubt about it. You've got a Liverpool side full of confidence arriving at the Emirates, but fingers crossed Arsenal can repeat the scoreline. That would be nice, wouldn't it? The last time these two sides met in the league at the Emirates. Right, moving on onto the appointment of Adam Birchall and a little bit on Jack Wilshere's departure. Of course, spoke briefly about it yesterday. That departure was announced, confirmed by Arsenal yesterday mid-morning. On the appointment of Birchall, Per Mertesacker said, Adam has a wealth of experience at Arsenal, having worked at every phase of our academy, most recently as our under-17s head coach and under-18 assistant coach. He is highly qualified and highly skilled individual who will transition into this new role effortlessly. Having played for our academy and coached here for almost 10 years, Adam is a key member of the Arsenal family. We are confident that Adam will lead this important age group in a forward-thinking, exciting and energetic way. So good, you want to see progression in these coaches in the academy, and it's good to see Adam getting that promotion. On Jack Wilshere's departure, I'm surprised at how there has been a little bit of sort of negativity almost at his departure, and the fact that Arsenal should have done more to keep Jack Wilshere and things like that, and players unhappy that he's got. I just don't really get that myself, because he's a young English coach. Why would Arsenal stand in his way of leaving if he wants to go, which he did? Why would Arsenal block that? I just don't get it. It's a good thing for the academy that you've shown, if you're an under 18s coach, you can progress. That's going to make more top coaches want to come and be part of the Arsenal academy. You can't keep coaches at that level if there's a really good progression route. Why would they want to stay? So I don't see why Arsenal should be doing more to keep Jack Wilshere or anything like that. He was the under 18s coach. He was given a fantastic opportunity for Arsenal. He took that. He's done well. He's raised his profile, and a top championship side have come in and offered him a first team coaching role. That's just natural progression. That's just what happens in football. It's always been that way, and it always should be that way. For Arsenal to potentially block his move and say, no, you're staying as our under 18s coach, it would be such a detrimental thing to Wilshere's career. So I don't see why they should have done more to keep him. Like, what more would they want? He wasn't going to. He's not ready yet, you would think, to join Mikel's first team coaching staff. Arsenal have got an under 21s coach on board who is highly respected and liked and doing a decent job. So I just don't see why Arsenal should have done more to keep Jack Wilshere. I think it's a perfectly explainable thing that has happened. He's done well. He's been approached by a top championship side. He wanted that move, and Arsenal said, by all means, go and take it. We're really, really proud of you. We're delighted that progression is happening. So, yeah, I was a little bit surprised. And I just hope Wilshere does really, really well. As I said yesterday, I'm hopeful that's not the end of his Arsenal story. Hopefully goes well, continues to build his career, does well as his first team opportunity at Norwich, goes on some point soon down the line, as he should, and become a head coach somewhere else after that. And who knows, does a good job. Maybe one day he'll come back as the Arsenal manager. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised, I have to say, at some of the reaction that I've seen to the fact that Arsenal have allowed Jack Wilshere to leave. Moving on to some questions and comments now. I've got a couple here. One from CDL Gaming, who says, I feel like Arsenal without Odegaard and Saka is seriously missing that creative final pass. I do think Ranieri would be a decent stand-in, but we shouldn't have to trust a 17-year-old to handle the kind of burden for the whole team, which is exactly why Arteta is protecting him right now. Jesus is struggling to find form. Martinelli is just starting to find form again. And I'm starting to understand why Sterling was dropped by Chelsea. Havertz and Trossard are great finishers, but they're not being set up. Where are the goals going to come from? And Wild Child says, I think the constant fuzzing over Ranieri to start is out of place and quite frankly naive. Just because he's had a few good cameos and starts in game when little or nothing is at stake doesn't mean he's ready to start, or that it's pertinent to throw a 16-year-old into midfield in a must-win Champions League and Premier League game when a number of the big boys are already out. It's a completely different matter to go out there under that pressure without the support of the strongest team. Times like this, when the team is struggling, you lean on experience and physicality. It's the smart thing to do, and it's the right thing to do. So interesting stuff there from there's lots of other comments, very similar sort of vein to that. There's obviously others who are saying that he should be starting. I had my say on it yesterday. I do feel like he should. I don't think he should be starting every game. But I'm not sitting here saying, look, Ranieri's the answer. Play him every single game. I don't think that's the case at all. I think what Arteta's doing with Ranieri is perfectly understandable, and you do have to protect this 17-year-old. Not everyone is Yamal. You can't just compare everyone to Barcelona and everything like that. Everyone's different, and if Mikel is clearly trying to protect Ethan and manage his game time. We know he's going to play from the start next week in the EFL Cup. That will definitely happen. And so I'm not saying he needs to start every Premier League game and every Champions League game in the absence of Martin Odegaard, but I do still feel that there were missed opportunities for him to start potentially one of those games and just get a few more extra minutes. Could he not have come on in the second half against Shakhtar? That sort of thing. So I agree he has to be managed, and I don't think he is the person that everyone should be focusing on now as being the replacement for these players while they're out injured. But I just still do feel like there's been a bit of an opportunity missed to give him some more minutes than he's potentially got in this period. But thank you very much to the pair of you for getting in touch there. We've got one from Oscar now who says, am I the only one who thinks Arsenal fans are underappreciating how severe our injuries currently are? We are missing arguably the best right winger in the world, and at the same time, the best right 8 in the world. Any team in the world would struggle. Can you imagine how we'd be feeling, say, if Liverpool without Salah and Gravenberch or Szoboszlai, Chelsea without Palmer and Lavia Casido, Spurs without Son and Maddison? Except the players we are missing are much better. This is not even mentioning that our first choice left back, 2 reserve left backs are injured. I think we get through the next weeks and still be near the top of the table, not totally embarrass ourselves. This would be nothing short of a miracle. We need to adapt to this and might come at the expense of quality and expansiveness. No, I don't think anyone's underappreciating the injuries that Arsenal have. I'm certainly not. I think it's they're really, really crucial. There's no, the correlation between Arsenal's sort of performances at the moment are as a direct result of the injuries. You stick Odegaard and Saka in this team, it's completely different. And there is an argument of why you're so reliant on 2 players, but we're not just talking about 2 ordinary players here. As Oscar points out, they're arguably 2 of the best players, or not even arguably, they are 2 of the best players in their position in the world. And they've got such an understanding together. And when they're both out at the same time, that just leaves a gaping hole. And the people you're going to bring in to replace them are never going to be as good as those 2 players. So there's understandably going to be a drop-off. So I'm not underappreciating the injuries, or how severe the injuries are. And like you said, what's going on at the back at the moment is hugely disruptive as well. And it is a case of just getting through this period. It's what I said at the time when Odegaard first went down. It was just like, you just got to find a way to win at the moment in these games. And on the whole, largely Arsenal have done that. They did it in midweek against Shakhtar. Yes, it wasn't pretty, but they won, and that's the most important thing. Obviously, they didn't get the win against Bournemouth. The red card played a key part of that. I still think 11 on 11, Arsenal might well have ended up grinding that game out and winning it 1-0 like they did in midweek. So you do have to adapt. And as you say, it might come at the expense of quality and expansiveness. And I think it is definitely coming coming at the expense of quality and expansiveness. So, and it's understandable. So no, I'm not underappreciating how severe the injuries are. Everyone would miss the players that Arsenal are currently missing at the moment. And yeah, they've just got to find a way to win. And hopefully they can do that again at the weekend. I would predict as well, if you're expecting Arsenal to be this fluent, brilliant, exciting team against Liverpool, I'm not sure it will be that case. I think, again, I look back to the win against Man City last season when there was no Saka in that game as well. And they're missing a few players and they won it 1-0 with that Gabriel Martinelli deflected shot late on. When I look at this Liverpool game at the weekend, it wouldn't surprise me if it's a pretty similar sort of game to that one. Maybe Liverpool give Arsenal more space to exploit than Man City did, because that was very much a game of chess. And we know Liverpool are a bit more open and expansive than that. So it might be a little bit more space for Arsenal to exploit, but I still am expecting it to be a pretty tight game that Arsenal will look to try and swamp them a little bit and maybe, score from the set piece or score maybe like that Martinelli goal against Manchester City. Jabal says, let's talk about Timber. What's going on with him? Is it fair that Mikel does not let us in on such things? I mean, Timber, I've already spoken about. Arsenal make a late decision. He's not been ruled out as far as I'm aware. But I thought the last bit was quite interesting when he said, is it fair that Mikel does not let us on in such things? And it's just an interesting thing, isn't it? Should managers be more truthful when it comes to injuries, so that these millions of fans of the clubs around the world have more of an understanding about what is going on with injuries? It's an interesting debate. Frankly, I think no. Look, I'd love to know everything about Arsenal injuries because it just clears everything up and it gives you a much better appreciation of what you're expecting at the weekend. But then it also just tips off the rival managers. And so they can get they can work out a plan a few days in advance that gives them a much better chance of stifling Arsenal. So I don't really think Arteta or any other manager needs to be more open when it comes to injuries. I can understand why they're not. And this is so hard to win Premier League games. So hard to win Premier League games that you don't want to give anyone, an opposition manager, an opposition coach and stuff, any more chance of putting a plan in place that can stop you than you have to. So I don't really think it's under the managers. There should be any pressure on managers to really tell the truth when it comes to all of these injuries. And Leon at the end here says, Trossard must be dropped for the Liverpool game. He can't complete a 90-minute game without putting us at risk of conceding for a dangerous pass. He caused the red for Saliba, picked his fight against the smallest City player and got punished for it. He was the biggest impact player across all of Europe last year with his goals off the bench. He should be an impactor, as he has proven he can do, which is an interesting debate. We always seem to go round and round in circles with Leo, don't we? It's like he's on the bench, he does brilliantly, comes on, scores goals. We all say he has to start, then he does start. And then after a couple of appearances, it's like, oh, Leo should probably back on the bench. It's just like a constant circle when it comes to him. It'll be interesting if Saka's fit for the weekend. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Trossard. Does he play or not? I think with Trossard at the moment, that especially with Odegaard out, I just think the understanding he has with Havertz in that central role is very, very important. And I would still probably err on the side of him starting this Liverpool game, especially as Saka's fit. And then you can have Saka right, Martinelli left, and you can have Odegaard and Havertz playing as that kind of pair, and then two of the centre midfielders behind them. So I would still probably go towards that when it comes to Trossard, but I get that he's not in the greatest of form at the moment. There's no doubt about that. And he is causing some issues with some very bizarre back passes. Obviously, the one against Bournemouth, he did it again against Shakhtar in midweek. And he is in danger of losing his place, but I would suggest just about for this game that he would probably still keep his place in the starting 11 for it. And that's it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. As always, I really do appreciate it. I'll be back in the morning to do it all over again. We've got the press conference in the afternoon as well as we start to really gear up for that huge, huge game at the Emirates on Sunday. Have a great Thursday, everyone. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.